Hello, especially for the Dirty Secrets channel.
Routine. Dr. Thomas Everett arrived home just past 11, the familiar creak of the front door announcing his presence. Sarah, his wife of 12 years, sat curled on the living room sofa, a book open in her lap, but her eyes fixed on the door. "Another late night?" she asked, offering a small smile. Tom nodded wearily, setting down his leather briefcase by the door. "Mrs. Wilson's implant procedure was more complicated than I anticipated. Then I had to update all the charts." He loosened his tie, the tension visibly draining from his shoulders. "Sorry I missed dinner again." Sarah closed her book. "There's a plate in the fridge. I can heat it up." "Thanks, but I grabbed something at the office." He bent down to kiss her forehead. "I'm going to shower and crash. Big day tomorrow." As she watched him trudge up the stairs, Sarah couldn't help but notice the faint scent that followed him. Not the antiseptic smell of a dental office, but something sweeter, more personal. Perfume? She shook the thought away. Tom was dedicated to his practice. That's all it was. But it wasn't the first time she'd noticed it, nor was it the first time he'd declined dinner after a late night at the office. Suspicion. Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. Tom's late nights at Everett Dental became more frequent. Tuesdays and Thursdays until 10 p.m., and occasionally even later on Fridays. He blamed it on a new administrative system he was implementing, plus a surge of patients needing complex procedures. "Dental emergencies don't keep bankers' hours," he'd quip when she questioned him. Sarah tried to be understanding. She'd married a healthcare professional after all, but small inconsistencies began to pile up. Different arrival times from what his receptionist mentioned when Sarah called the office, the way he'd shower immediately upon arriving home, how he would step outside to take certain calls, claiming the reception inside was poor. One evening, while Tom was at work, Sarah's best friend Layla called. Their conversation veered towards Sarah's growing concerns. "I feel silly even talking about this," Sarah admitted. "Tom's never given me a reason not to trust him before." "Why don't you surprise him at the office one night?" Layla suggested. "Bring dinner. If he's just working late, he'll appreciate it. And if not, at least I'll know," Sarah finished, her stomach nodding at the thought. The stakeout. Friday night came and Tom texted that he'd be working until around 10. Sarah waited until 8:30 before driving to Everett Dental, a small practice in a converted Victorian house on Maple Street. She'd brought no dinner, despite Layla's suggestion. Something told her this wasn't a night for pretenses. From across the street, Sarah watched the clinic. The main lights were dimmed, but she could see a soft glow from Tom's office in the back. The parking lot contained 3 cars. Tom's silver BMW, a red Honda she didn't recognize, and a blue Audi SUV. Her heart sank. The clinic should have closed at 6. No assistants or hygienists should be there. Who did these cars belong to? She was about to approach the front door when it opened. A woman in her mid-30s emerged, smoothing down her skirt and checking her reflection in her compact mirror before walking briskly to the blue Audi. She looked flushed, happy. Sarah ducked behind a tree, then watched as the woman drove away. No dental patient looked that satisfied after an appointment. 20 minutes later, another woman arrived. Younger, professionally dressed, carrying a small purse. She punched in a code at the door and disappeared inside. Sarah felt sick. The confrontation. Sarah's hands trembled as she dialed Layla. "I think you were right," she whispered. "There are women coming and going. The office should be closed." "Go home, Sarah," Layla urged. "Confront him there, not in public." "No, I need to see for myself." Decision made, Sarah crossed the street. The security keypad beside the door gave her pause, but only briefly. She knew the code Tom had chosen when they first opened the practice. 0824, their anniversary. She entered it. Nothing happened. She tried again. Still nothing. Tom had changed the code. Rage and hurt fueled her now. Sarah walked around to the back of the building. where a small staff entrance led directly to the break room. She still had the spare key Tom had given her years ago when she occasionally helped with the books. The door opened smoothly, silently. Sarah stepped into the darkened break room, orientating herself. Down the hall, she could hear low voices, music playing softly. She moved cautiously toward Tom's office, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. The door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. She heard Tom's voice, then a woman's laugh. Intimate, suggestive. Sarah pushed the door open. The revelation. Sarah froze in the doorway, her mind struggling to process the scene before her. Tom sat at his desk, not in his usual dental attire, but dressed in a crisp button-down and slacks. Across from him sat the young professional woman Sarah had seen enter earlier, now with tears streaming down her face. Not tears of pain or sadness, but of what appeared to be relief. "You don't understand how much this means to me," the woman was saying, clutching a business card in her hand. "I've been stuck for so long, paralyzed." Tom nodded compassionately. "Trauma works that way, Jessica. But you've taken the first step tonight. That's huge." Neither had noticed Sarah yet. The woman Jessica wiped her eyes. "My husband is going to be so relieved. I haven't been able to, since the accident. I was afraid to even try." "Give Dr. Mendez a call," Tom replied, pointing to the card. "She's the best trauma-informed sexual wellness therapist in the state. Tell her I sent you." Sarah must have made a sound, because Tom looked up suddenly, surprise washing over his face. "Sarah! What are you doing here?" The confession. After awkward introductions and Jessica's hasty departure, Sarah and Tom sat facing each other in his office. The air felt electric with tension. "You're running some kind of sex therapy clinic out of your dental practice?" Sarah asked incredulously. "Is that even legal?" Tom ran his hands through his hair. "It's not what you think. I'm not providing therapy myself. I'm just a gateway. A safe first stop." He sighed deeply, then revealed the story he'd kept hidden for nearly 2 years. After treating a patient who confided she hadn't been to a dentist in years because of trauma from a sexual assault, Tom realized how many people avoided necessary dental care due to past traumas. "It started with just trying to create a trauma-informed dental practice," he explained. "But then I noticed how many patients, mostly women but some men too, would open up about intimacy issues triggered by dental procedures. The vulnerability, the loss of control." He'd begun connecting them with appropriate resources. First a psychologist friend, then a network of specialized therapists. Word spread quietly. Soon, people were coming just for referrals, too embarrassed to seek help through traditional channels. "Why keep it from me?" Sarah asked, hurt evident in her voice. "Patient confidentiality, initially. Then, I don't know. It seemed too complicated to explain. People trust me with things they wouldn't tell anyone else. It felt sacred somehow." The aftermath. In the days following her discovery, Sarah cycled through a range of emotions. Relief that Tom wasn't having affairs, anger at being kept in the dark, confusion about the ethical boundaries of what he was doing. "You could lose your license," she pointed out one evening as they sat at the kitchen table, attempting to process everything. "Using your dental practice as cover for this referral service." "I know," Tom admitted. "But these people need help, Sarah. Traditional healthcare has failed them. They're suffering in silence because seeking help for sexual wellness is still taboo." "But why you? Why a dentist?" Tom's response was simple. "Because they trust me. I see them at their most vulnerable already. And because no one suspects a dentist of talking about sex." Sarah couldn't argue with his compassion, but the secrecy had created a fracture in their relationship. Trust, once broken, proved difficult to rebuild. Meanwhile, phone calls continued to come at odd hours. People in crisis seeking Tom's guidance. Sarah watched as he handled each with care and discretion, directing them to appropriate professionals while offering a judgment-free first point of contact. Despite her reservations, she couldn't deny the good he was doing. The dilemma. 3 weeks after her discovery, Sarah received a call that changed everything. The state dental board was investigating Tom's practice following an anonymous complaint about irregular after-hours activities. Tom came home ashen-faced that evening. They're auditing my patient records next week. They find the discrepancies. People I've seen after hours who never received dental treatment. What will you do? Sarah asked. I don't know. I could stop, destroy the records of the referral meetings. But what about the people who need help? That night, they lay awake side by side, the gravity of the situation hanging between them. Tom's career, their livelihood, hung in the balance. Yet closing this door would leave vulnerable people without a trusted resource. Maybe, Sarah said finally, breaking the silence. There's another way. Part 9. The proposal. Sarah spent the next day researching, making calls, pulling together resources. By evening, she had sketched out a plan that made Tom's eyes widen with surprise. A separate wellness center? He asked, looking over her notes. Adjacent to the dental practice, but legally distinct? Sarah nodded. A legitimate counseling referral service with proper licensure and protocols. Will bring in qualified professionals, the very ones you've been referring people to. Make it above board. That would take significant investment. And what about my dental practice? Keep it. That's your training, your passion. But this new center becomes the official home for the work you've been doing underground. Her eyes sparkled with determination. I could run the administrative side. My experience in healthcare management would be perfect for this. Tom studied his wife's face, seeing not just acceptance of his secret mission, but a desire to expand it, improve it, legitimize it. Why would you do this after I kept this from you for so long? Sarah took his hand. Because I married a man who cares deeply about helping others. I was hurt by the secrecy, yes, but I've seen how much these people need what you're offering. The question isn't, why would I help? It's how could I not? The transformation. The next 6 months brought whirlwind changes. Tom cooperated fully with the dental board, receiving only a warning after explaining the circumstances. With Sarah's organizational skills and Tom's connections, they secured funding to launch Everett Wellness Center in a renovated space adjacent to the dental practice. Sarah recruited a team of licensed therapists specializing in sexual trauma and wellness. Tom continued his dental practice while serving as a consulting director for the center, creating protocols for identifying patients who might benefit from trauma-informed care. What had once been secretive became revolutionary, a comprehensive approach that recognized the connections between oral health and broader physical and emotional well-being. Not everyone understood. They lost some traditional patients uncomfortable with the association. Conservative community members whispered about that sex clinic disguised as a dental office. But for every critic, there were dozens of grateful clients finding their way to appropriate care through the center's discreet, professional approach. The greatest transformation, however, occurred in Tom and Sarah's relationship. The secrecy had been replaced by partnership, the distance by shared purpose. Working together to help others had healed their own wounds. New beginnings. 1 year after that fateful night when Sarah had caught Tom in his office with Jessica, the Everett Wellness Center celebrated its grand opening in a new, expanded location. The modest referral service had grown into a full-fledged integrative wellness center with dental services, psychological counseling, and trauma-informed care under one roof. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Sarah stood beside Tom, watching with pride as he addressed the gathered crowd. We all carry invisible wounds, he said. Some from childhood, some from adulthood. Some physical, some emotional. For too long, we've treated the body as separate parts. A mouth, a heart, a mind, instead of recognizing that healing must be holistic. In the audience, Sarah spotted familiar faces, former after-hours clients, who now openly sought help at the center. Among them was Jessica, now training to become a peer counselor. As applause erupted, Tom turned to Sarah and whispered, "Thank you for catching me that night, for seeing not just what I was hiding, but what I was trying to accomplish." Sarah squeezed his hand. What had begun as a breach of trust had evolved into something neither could have imagined. A partnership stronger than before, a mission larger than themselves, and a model of care that challenged outdated boundaries between physical and emotional health. The secret behind the dental chair had been transformed from a source of potential shame into a beacon of healing for an entire community. Sometimes, Sarah reflected, it takes a painful revelation to uncover an even more powerful truth, that helping others heal can be the most profound way to heal ourselves.
Thank you for watching. If you liked the story, like, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Thank you.